So if you want more time, income, freedom, whatever that might look like, you have to commit to being a bigger and a better, a more effective leader. Would you agree, Nick?
Completely. Absolutely. It's your number one priority as the owner of the business to develop your leadership skills and lean into it.
Welcome to the Treat Your Business podcast, the show for clinic owners who want real, honest advice and tried and tested ways of doing things. I'm Katie Bell, and this is the new era of bigger insights and bolder conversations to help you grow a clinic and a life you love. Let's dive in.
We're going to talk about something today that might feel uncomfortable for many of you listening. When a business isn't working, how often is it actually a leadership tolerance issue rather than a team or a systems problem? I am really excited to be joined by Nichola, my COO in Thrive, and who's also had experience of working within my clinic when she was helping when somebody was off on maternity leave. So you're going to get loads and loads of value from this episode. So buckle up, listen in. Welcome to the episode.
Thank you for having me again. Good to be here.
You're so welcome. When a business isn't working, is it a leadership tolerance issue rather than a team or systems problem? And my first question around this, because we're going to really dive into it, is why do you think this topic triggers people so much? And do you think it's because you almost sometimes don't want to look too deep inwards because you think, oh, that's going to take a lot of fixing, or that isn't just a strategy I can put in place or a process I can just follow? It can often feel a bigger problem, can't it?
I think it also depends on somebody's previous experiences in workplaces that it can be triggering. If they've had a particularly bad experience themselves and they've gone into business like, I'm never going to be like that. So therefore the balance swings too far the other way because they want to be liked. They want to avoid conflict. So I think that's why it's so triggering. Sometimes they don't realize that's what the issue is, but when you dig into it, they're trying to model something that they don't know how to model. They just know that they don't want to be that like that person. And that's very triggering.
And you hear that a lot, Nick, when we're coaching and talking to our clinic owners, that many of them have come from the NHS and started their own business, or they've had a leader before. What kind of things have they had before in terms of, or experiences they had in leadership that's meant that they then don't want to be that person?
Well, I just don't think they've had leadership in the true sense of the word as we know it. They've just had people that were more dictators or bullies. Mainly those people, it's not necessarily their fault. They may have never been taught how to be a leader either, but it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it? They're modeling bad behavior because they don't know anything else. And some people will go on to do that and don't realize that's what they're doing. And then others will be more of a case, I definitely don't want to be like that. So they've not actually had leaders lead them that really know how to treat people well and to set out clear expectations.
Sure. And I can actually personally relate to that. And I think you can as well, Nick.
Absolutely can.
Yeah. We've both had experience of leadership that, I guess from my perspective, I wanted to be a present leader because of what experience I'd had. I wanted to be somebody that communicated well. I wanted to be somebody that valued my team and made them feel important and that I'm invested in their development. And I didn't want to be greedy.
Yeah.
And it be all about the money. What experience have you had?
In terms of what it made me not want to be fair, just treat people with respect.
Yeah.
For me is the biggest one. Take the time to be very clear about the why certain things need to happen as opposed to just telling and dictating and then being extremely harsh when things maybe have not gone to the way that they wanted, but you weren't really clear about what was the way then?
Yeah.
Why were we doing that? Because a lot of people need to know the why behind it and be given the opportunity to buy into that.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of this, for me, boils down to creating the right culture. which it comes down to your values and what you want that environment to be like. So that for me was something, working in several toxic environments in the past was the key thing. I was very keen to avoid ever happening again, wherever I went.
And do you think then that, based on my experiences, your experiences, sometimes, and I guess especially in we've now been down this path a while in terms of leadership, and we both have leadership responsibilities in our company. And sometimes we can have to just self-check ourselves, can't we? Because those experiences can have shown us the way we don't want to be, and therefore the way we'd like to be. But actually, sometimes we can go too far down that road. And so what do you think then are the most common things that we see clinic owners tolerating that then just quietly erode performance in a company?
The key, it can show up with different people in different ways. So if we put it in a clinical perspective, there will be people that maybe these are your self-employed team who decide what their diaries look like. And there's an element of they're self-employed, so you can't put all the employee constraints on them, but they might be changing their diaries too much, or they might be blocking out things, too many gaps in their diaries. So is tolerating that, which is that is not good for business in the slightest. And and that's a failure of setting out expectations from the very start. So it could look like that. It could look like somebody, the biggest one we see, the biggest frustration I hear all the time is if I hear another therapist just say to a patient or a client, see how you go, and if you need our help, come back. That's the biggest frustration from a leader, because they've just let that person walk out the door without any form of follow-up. That's not good customer service at all. That is not about the money. That's about that person, of whoever that therapist was, avoiding a money conversation for whatever reason. So I think that shows up. They're tolerating that too much, and they'll say they've come from an NHS background and that's just the way it is. So that's a big tolerance that we see all
there's definitely this kind of underarching fear or overarching fear around, if I say what I really want to say, or if I put in boundaries and rules and expectations, they're not going to want to work for me, or they're going to think I'm just in it for the money. And I was reading an article last night actually about how our brain is instantly in fear-based decision making, rather than, if I tell this person that he's taking the piss, that I don't want that to happen anymore, and these are the expectations, this is the process, it's going to go really well. They're going to be a much better kind of person to work for. The clients are going to get a better experience. We don't think that, first of all. We instantly go to, oh, they're not going to like me. They're going to think I'm in it for the money. I'm just thinking about the money then. And for many people, when they're not aware of this, the mindset then just rules how they run their business.
Totally. And then also you've got the other part of that as well, is the fear of, what if they leave? I'm not ever going to have to take on more clinical hours when I was trying to get myself out of clinical hours, or I've got to go through that whole process again and I don't have time to do that. If that's where the bottleneck is and you need that person, then you'll put up with anything because you can't see a way out. It feels like it's much more harder to start over again than it is to keep tolerating it. But that, obviously, as we know, is the worst thing.
It's the worst thing. It's this really short-term agony, pain that you have to go through for long-term gain. But when you are so tired, when you're so exhausted, when you're carrying it all, you do tolerate, you do put up. And I always say to my business manager in KB, if we are talking about this person once a month, okay. We're talking about them once a week, they'll go. We're talking about them daily, like they should have gone 6 months ago. And there becomes a point where you have to address it, because it becomes this kind of Japanese knotweed in your company that just takes over and everybody's energy is affected by it, your energy. And only when I was talking to Vicky on the podcast a few weeks ago, she's had to remove somebody from her team. And she said, I should have done it months ago. I didn't. And it's consumed so much of her energy and time. And going home and thinking about it at night and talking to her wife about it and deliberating over Christmas, shall I do it? Shall I not do it? And all of that is time that you are not spent on the bigger stuff in the business and the things that are going to move forward. So when does empathy turn into avoidance?
With what you've just said, but I would go a step further. How much of your conversational time are they taking up? But equally, if you're talking about somebody once a month, every month, that still is too much.
Too much, yeah.
But if you are feeling that level of frustration, or even if, let's say, your phone rings and it's that person's name and your heart sinks, and you're immediately thinking, what's the problem now? Empathy is already gone.
Yeah.
Because that's not the way you want to be feeling about a team member.
Sure.
So I think there's a mixture. But empathy, I remember years ago that somebody told me, and this is something I always use as a bit of a sense check, you are responsible to people, not for them. And then, so for me, when I know I'm back in empathy is when I feel responsible for them, in terms of if I have to remove them from the business or tell them end their contract or whatever, what impact is that going to have on their life? How are they? You maybe have children, family. I might know a lot about them, and I know that it's going to have a big impact on them. That was me being too empathetic, because I'm not responsible for their life.
Yeah.
I'm not responsible for the choices that they make. What I am responsible to is providing a work environment that has the right culture, whatever that culture is for your work environment. But I'm responsible to making sure I'm very clear about expectations. And I'm responsible to making sure that there is open dialogue and clear communication. Yeah. So if I'm feeling, oh gosh, I feel sorry for them, I was in empathy far too much.
And I guess we talk about colours a lot in Thrive, don't we? And many of our therapists go into this role initially when we went to like your careers advisor when you were 15 and they told you whatever you needed to be. Many of us went into these roles because we have a big heart, because we care a lot, because I'm not saying other people don't, but we wanted to serve people and help people. And many of us are yellow and blue, which really need to be liked and really struggle with these big direct conversations. So we get in our own way, don't we? We have this constant avoidance because of the fear of not being liked, which it really boils down to. And we justify, as you've just said, with, oh, they've got family, it's Christmas, it's a Friday, I can't do it at this time, they've already got patients booked in, you know what? And we justify, we find all these reasons, and they are excuses as to why we can't have that hard conversation. Do we see it show up differently in small teams versus maybe established clinics?
I don't know if it necessarily shows up differently, because the tolerance is there regardless, but I think the impact is much larger in a bigger team. I think that's the biggest challenge, mainly because the culture is at risk. If you've got a larger team and one of your fellow team members doing something, getting away with things, that can start to eat away at yourself.
Yeah.
And then, so now the culture of the whole business, of the whole clinic, is now massively at risk. When it's a small team, it doesn't have as much of an impact.
Yeah.
But the ripples are starting.
Sure. And I think what the foundations that you lay, this is something I said to Vicky when she was having to have this big conversation, and she's got a relatively small team, but wants it to grow. I said, what you do now in this very moment dictates how you are going to lead your business moving forwards. Your ego, a part of your brain needs the experience that you have stacked up It's been uncomfortable. You're not, and I say this to clinic owners, you're not meant to like these conversations. Like, if you do like them, then you're weird. You haven't got a heart. You're not, it's meant to feel uncomfortable. It's not meant to feel good. You're meant to leave feeling a bit bad and a bit sad about it. But a big part of you knows that it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But if you take those uncomfortable conversations early on in your business, as your business does become more established, you technically will tolerate less. You will act quicker. I tolerated a lot more for a long time when I was smaller and I was a newer leader, younger leader. And then as the businesses have grown, both of my businesses have grown, actually the time that I tolerate things is a lot less. Nick, let's use your operational brain. From an operational point of view, where do you most often see leaders being the bottleneck without realizing it?
When they are not able to or willing to prioritize time to analyze data, things like new patient conversions, for example. Then, so they're not looking at any form of numbers or data in their business. When they are not prioritizing the time to then speak to their team about that, whether it be it weekly, monthly, those are the key things where I think they have now become the bottleneck. So they're not doing it. Nobody's doing it. So no one is any the wiser of what is the situation in the business. Their diaries might be pretty busy, so they're just going about the business and it's very disconnected.
Yeah.
So
and
that's when
I guess that's the leaders there are, the team are tolerating not knowing all of this stuff. The leaders are in a way tolerating that they don't know it and they're not prioritizing it. And this is for me a massive game changer. When you expect to grow a business without purposefully using your time to grow a business, just flitting between client appointments and squeezing in the odd meeting with your members of team and not really giving it any thought and focus on what the year ahead is going to look like and what you need to be working on. This is when a business stagnates very quickly and it doesn't grow. And it's really a leader, they are tolerating their own story, that they don't have time to make this stuff happen. Absolutely. And if leaders decided they weren't going to tolerate this anymore of themselves, what systems would you be encouraging leaders to have that would help them tolerate underperformance, stop them from having to tolerate underperformance in their company? Because it's all right saying, okay, I'm not going to tolerate me not having the time to do this anymore. I'm going to make it, but then they don't have the information that they need in front of them. So what would you recommend in that situation?
So let's start from the beginning. So the first process you need to have in place, it's a little bit after the horse is bolted, but one to start the journey is the right interviewing, hiring process.
Yeah.
So that process is hiring people, not just for their skill set and experience for the job, but as a culture fit based on core values. Because if you can't teach a value, you can't teach a culture. If you bring somebody in that is not on the same path as you in terms of what their beliefs and their values are, they will just become that itch that you can never scratch. They're technically good at their job, but they rub you up the wrong way. Yeah. And that makes that harder to then, particularly if they're employed, to do anything about it. So start there. Look at that whole process. Are you interviewing culturally as well as technically? Then in terms of another process would be, okay, what's the process in terms of the onboarding of that new team member? Have you got clear expectations with them? Do they know what their key roles are? Do they know what their key performance indicators are? So what are you measuring them against? Yeah. Are they clear of what that is? Are they on the same page? And now you've set the intention from the start. Yeah. But for most people listening to this, they're already in that. They're in it now. So where you would start now is you getting clear on what are the key performance indicators you want to measure all of your team against. And then we would normally say that 1 to 3 numbers, measurables that every single person in your team should have. So if it's a therapist, they would have a new patient conversion number. What's the percentage of new patients coming in do you want to convert? They would have the average number of visits. They would have the percentage of their diary time that is full, so their capacity or occupancy. There's their three numbers right there.
Yeah.
If you, depending on what other team you've got, it could be in terms of the length of time in which, say, someone on reception gets back to a new inquiry. What's the guideline there? Are they responding quick enough? It could be the number of rings that the phone rings for before it's picked up. There are numbers everywhere, but it's your job as the owner, as the leader of the business, to determine what are the measurables for you, for the business, that you need to be tracking. And then you need to discuss those with your team, for individually and collectively.
Yeah.
What they are, why they're important, what that means for everybody. And it's not just about the money. So it's being okay with you being vulnerable to share that, yes, we are in a private practice that requires financial stability and growth for it to stay alive.
Yeah.
We don't have a government that's putting money into it. So it requires that. So that's the reality of it. But also, this is about exceptional customer service. So therefore, these numbers are there to protect that.
Sure.
And I think it's about getting that balance. So that's a process there. And then having a process in place that for you, unless you've got a business manager or a clinical manager, the process is for measuring those numbers and disseminating those numbers to everybody, and a process for making sure you put in your diary catch-ups, reviews with your team on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So a lot of your time as a leader is looking down on the business as opposed to being in it, all the doing.
And I always think that the biggest challenge for many of our clinic owners, and we hear it all the time, is I haven't got time. I haven't got time. I'm really busy. I'm seeing loads of clients. And I say that 1 hour that you decide to not see a patient for, maybe you make £100 in your clinic for seeing a patient in that time. If you move somebody's retention rate up from 2.2 to 3 or 4, that makes you thousands of pounds more a year.
Yeah.
If you move their conversion rate up by 10%, it makes you a lot more money a year. So it's often looking at the bigger picture and thinking, actually, short term, I'm going to lose that £100 and I might just annoy that client ever so slightly because I can't fit them in when they really want to come. But they'll figure it out and they'll come another time, versus I'm going to make all this money over here for the business so the business can grow. We're in profit. We can then reinvest. We can have better people, better systems, etc. And you then have to decide, once you have all of these numbers in front of you, is how long do you tolerate? Because it's all right having all the numbers, but if you consistently then tolerate underperformance, but you can honestly say, is this a process problem or a people problem? And that's the first question we always have to ask before we dive in there, all guns blazing, is that actually, have we got a good process? Have we got training? Are we teaching these people how to retain and convert and supporting them? Yes, we are. We're doing everything we possibly can in our will to support them. So now this is a people problem.
Yeah.
And therefore, how long are we going to tolerate this for before a big conversation or even just a small conversation needs to happen?
And the conversation, I think people build that conversation up into this huge thing that you're going in, like you say, all guns blazing, pointing fingers. There's a very wise woman in our team, Philippa Aldridge, who says, be curious. So now I'm like, the first question you can go in with is more, I'm curious to know, what was it about your conversion that previously was at 80%, but in the last month is being down to 60%. I'm curious to know what's going on. Why do you think that is? That's a much softer way that's going to probably give you a better return, rather than if you go in quite even passive aggressive or aggressive, some people, you're going to get resistance coming back. Whereas if you go in and lean in with curiosity and you're just trying to explore and find out what might have happened, what's going on, you're more likely to get a better conversation, so less conflict.
Yeah.
So I think that's the thing. People think they're going to get resistance and conflict. Look, sometimes it happens, but you can't be responsible for that person taking it in that way. You're responsible to having the conversation with them.
Yeah. Do you think, because a lot of people will say to us when we're coaching them, I'm just not an actual leader. I'm just not a good leader. I just don't really know how to do it. I'm like, have you ever learned it?
Yeah.
Have you ever been taught it? When was the last time you might go on all your CPD courses for the shoulder and for the hip and the knee and the pelvic floor? Have you actually been on a CPD course around leadership?
Yeah.
No, most of them haven't. So
No.
this is, I don't often think that the real issue is capability. I think often they're so busy trying to do everything else that they don't actually work on their own self-development. Being a great leader is being super self-aware and being able to take the necessary action and the learnings and commit to being a better leader and learning how to do it than just assuming that you're going to know how to.
Leadership is a consistent learning, never-ending process, but you have to want to do it. You have to. So anybody is capable of doing it if they want to. Doesn't matter what your background is. Doesn't matter, as we say, what the color is. That I'm a red, and technically red should be very straightforward. Yes, I am to a degree, but I still really care about people.
Yeah.
And I really want things to be done in the right way. So anybody can do it, but you have to want to, and you have to lean into learning about it. Both you and I have done so much reading about leadership, so many different I've worked with coaches and consultants, and it's all about leadership.
Yeah.
That you just every day is a school day.
Oh, and you think you've got it, and bam, another situation comes in, and you're like, okay, this is going to test me. This needs courage. This needs me to step up.
Yeah.
And that's where you can really grow as a person as well.
And also on that, you think you're doing it, and then until somebody calls you out on it, and you go, oh, actually, no, I'm not. No,
Yeah,
you're right.
we're good at that with each other, aren't we?
Well, I don't know anybody that's done that ever, but yes. You think, oh, I know what I'm doing. I'm doing it. And then you go, no, you're not. No, you're not, Nichola. Totally avoided that one. But we're human. We are human. I think that's the thing. And it's because, I don't know about you, Katie, I don't want people to feel bad. I just don't. But equally, there's a line, isn't there, when you as the owner or the leader is feeling frustrated and bad. That's not fair on you either.
And our job as leaders, and this whole not allowing people to do, we don't want people to feel bad, right? When you have this feeling that you are tolerating something in your business, i.e., let's say retention rates, conversion rates, right? I can guarantee 100% all my money on this, that the person that you are talking about is also not feeling fulfilled. Like they're not rocking and rolling in life going, oh my God, I'm loving my job. I feel really fulfilled. I feel really successful. They are failing in a lot of ways. They will know it unless they are completely out of touch, in which case they shouldn't be working for you. But they will know that. And so they will be feeling bad in that way. So our job is to free them of that and support them where we can. There's going to be many clinic owners that really are listening to this feeling quite uncomfortable because they might be reflecting that they have process issues. They aren't being courageous enough. They might have capability issues now in that they don't know what they should be doing and how to lead in the right way. What's the one place you'd ask them to look first?
They have to look at themselves. Are you talking about are you referring to where do they look to get the support, or in terms of
what do they do?
There are numerous books out there that help you, but you can read a book and interpret a book in any way, shape or form, but it's the doing that is the key thing. So you need to get some help from people that have been there, done that before. They understand the mistakes before you even make them. That you're around people who are also experiencing the same issues, because there's a collective, there's power in being part of a collective because you help people along. So you need to get some support in some shape or other. This is developing your leadership skills is not a journey you can do on your own. It's just not. It's impossible, I would say. That's a bold statement, but I truly believe it's impossible. You need guidance, you need support, and you need people around you that can cheer you on and say, you've got this, you're doing it, you're doing okay.
And encourage you to do the thing that feels most uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I said to Vicky when she reached out to me, she said, I've got to have this conversation. And I said, yeah. And I told her all the reasons why she needed to have it. And we future paced and we looked at what would, and I said, you need to let me know that you've done this by Friday night at 4 p.m.
Yeah.
She was like,
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah.
And that's all it is. With a big hug, with a lot of support, she probably would have either put that off or not done it.
Yeah.
And so you can't do this through willpower. Willpower is less than 5% of your brain. You can't do this just by thinking that you're going to be able to have these conversations. If you've not already, what's changing? Nothing changes if nothing changes. So I absolutely agree, Nick, that they need to have that support network around them.
They need to have somebody that's going to be bold enough as well to say to them, so I'm going to swear, I'm calling bullshit on that.
Yeah.
When they're telling themselves so much, you go, actually, let's stop there. We're not going to feed into that. What's the real issue here?
Yeah.
What's underneath this? What is stopping you from taking action? And then helping you to go, okay, so let's reframe that. How are you going to approach it? Because, like I said, going back to a book, or if you do an online course or whatever, you haven't got the accountability and you're not framing it in a way that's right for you. Like we would help in Thrive, we would help someone that was a blue to do it in a way that felt right for a blue. Someone that's a yellow in the right way that feels right for a yellow. And also on what your strengths are and what your culture is about. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach, leadership. That's the thing. Whereas if you read a book, it seems like it is, but it's not.
Absolutely. Yeah,
it
it's
has
not.
to feel authentic for you. Yes, it's going to be uncomfortable, but that's where you need that support. And as you said, the accountability to say, okay, are you clear on what you're going to do? Great. Let me know when it's done. And a check-in. How did that go?
Yeah.
And that's when you just take leaps forward in your business with your leadership.
And I think for everybody listening to this, as we summarize, really, that your business, I strongly believe, will grow to the level that your leadership grows. So if you want more time, income, freedom, whatever that might look like, you have to commit to being a bigger and a better, a more effective leader. Would you agree, Nick?
Completely. Absolutely. It's your number one priority as the owner of the business to develop your leadership skills and lean into it. Unless you are at that stage when you're trying to remove yourself, then you need somebody else in it. But you have to model it. You have to create the culture, and culture is key for success. You can't out-strategize culture.
What a way to finish. You can't out-strategize culture. Love that. Drop the mic and walk away. Nichola, thank you for being on this week's episode.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Treat Your Business podcast. Hit subscribe now and keep joining me for bigger insights, bolder conversations to help you build a clinic and a life you love.